Hello and welcome to a special meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Today is July 27th, 2021. Welcome back. This is technically our first live public meeting back, and we're in conference room C. We do have an open component of tonight's meeting as well as a closed component. This is the regular Tuesday where we consider the litigation-oriented matters confronting the city. And we also have a new city manager, Greg Larson. We also have a new city attorney who started today. And so welcome Chris Jensen as well. And so with regard to the item that is on our open session agenda tonight, we'll get to that in a moment. But first, without further delay, we'll ask our city clerk, Kirsten Squarsha, to conduct the roll call.
Councilmember Moore? Here. Councilmember Way? Here. Councilmember Wood?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow? Here. Paul?
And I'm here. Very good. And so I don't see any members of the public that are here live right now in conference room C. Because this is a hybrid meeting, what is happening is that people have three options of speaking to us from the public. Just to give you a sense beforehand, you can either raise your hand on Zoom, you can show up at City Hall, but you'll still need to undergo the check-in protocol and agree to wear a mask. If you are uncomfortable with either the check-in protocol or with wearing a mask, we still have the ability to hear you publicly, but we will just go outside of City Hall while we take in the public comment. That will not be televised because we don't have the capability of broadcasting live for those types of public comments. To introduce this item, number one under ordinances and action items, I'll just give a brief half-minute summary. Earlier this summer, we made some modifications to the agenda setting process for Cupertino, which is, of course, a very important process because that's where the genesis of all of the items on our agendas begins. And so we ended up having the ability to get our council member exposure, all of our council members exposure to the mayor's agenda setting process, as well as having a good divvying up of the remainder of the staff updates to council on the agendas. Now, in the interim, however, ever since that June 1st meeting, I think it was, we had an interim city manager start, Greg Larson. We're very pleased to have him. And he had a really great idea that he shared last week. And he said to me, you know, I've been at this for a good 20, 30 years. And while this looks effective, it is not exactly the most typical based upon what I've experienced. And so he had some great ideas that he put into his staff report with regard to how we could get a debrief on our meetings in council, but also have a good ability for each of the council members to look at the draft agendas, as well as look at the materials for the agenda in a timely fashion, such that questions could be brought forth to the manager, the assistant city manager, as well as the city attorney, and save a lot of staff time because we will no longer be having a full department head and a city council member briefing for each of the agendas. The points of contact will be our city manager and assistant city manager. So to me, it sounded really good. And Greg, over the weekend, put in weekend time. Thank you very much, Mr. Larson, for being willing to sacrifice a fair portion of your Saturday to put it together. I thought it was a great staff report. But if anyone has any questions, or Greg, you'd like to say anything further beyond what's written in the staff report, please feel free.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll just say thank you for that great staff report. I don't really have anything to add, except to highlight the real advantages I see to this. And first, for any of the public who's watching the meeting, the attachment to the staff report probably lays it out most clearly to understand what's happening. But the real advantages are the council gets information earlier, both in terms of what's coming on a future council agenda and letting staff know information they want included in the staff reports. You will have an opportunity to ask questions, as you already do, but staff is committing to get you answers to those questions as they're available earlier. We retain the current council prerogative, 2 members of council asking to have something on the future agenda, and the mayor to set those agendas, to approve the agendas. We do have the incidental benefit of reduced staff time, even if they're not needed. waiting for meetings. And what I think is the biggest benefit is we will be getting feedback from each member of the council immediately following each council meeting on how that meeting went. So staff can go into a continuous improvement process to better meet your needs and the community's needs. So I'll stop there and take any questions from the council or public.
That's perfect and excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager. And what I will add is that we are presented with an option because of the current way we do it. Two of our council members, Vice Mayor Chow as well as Council Member Willie, going in order of seniority, have had the opportunity to sit in with me under the current cycle and observe the mayor's agenda review setting meeting. If we change the way that this agenda setting review process goes, then Council Member Moore as well as Council Member Way will not have the ability to sit in on that. However, at that point, if we were to change it, it no longer becomes our process, at least for the remainder of this current term, this current one-year mayoral term. And so the question that's in front of council tonight is, do we want to stay with this so that council members Moore and Way have that opportunity under this old system to cycle through, or would we like to basically effective immediately implement this new type of way of going over agendas and setting the agendas? Vice Mayor Chow.
So since I've been through it once, right? As it turns out, I think under the city attorney's advice at that time, mayor actually set the agenda with the city manager before. So that 1 hour was no different than the agenda review we had. And not only that, I was not allowed to even ask questions. So it's really, it's a time that's no better than the previous agenda review as a result.
Very good.
Yeah.
So just keep in mind, we're asking
So
questions of staff. And
yeah.
So clarifying questions of Greg right now. Greg, did you want to respond to that?
One additional, I appreciate what Vice Mayor said. I did want to follow up. We did brief my staff today, all the department heads on the process. We have a slight preference for implementing during the council recess. It's just easier to adjust all the meetings, but we certainly would respect council members Moore and Way if they wanted to go through the observation process.
Of course. Okay, so I don't see any other hands raised for questions. Clarifying from staff, it seems like we all have a handle on what the options are. I do see a member of the public with a hand raised. And so Jennifer Griffin, I will go ahead and unmute you, and I'll remind the public that you'll need to have your hand raised by the time the first speaker is done, but also remind us because we have a hybrid situation tonight and possibly going forward, but we'll see how this works out. We're going to go to Zoom first. We'll go to live presence second, and then the city clerk will be informed as to whether we have any people actually outside of City Hall that are not willing to comply with the protocols. And so welcome, Jennifer. You'll have 3 minutes.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, welcome.
Okay. I still don't trust this tablet. You know what? Let me just make a comment initially, since this is the first time with masks on. Could you all make sure when you're speaking that you speak slowly and very, very clearly? I think you guys are doing a great job, but I lost a couple of comments from people because they were muffled. And I think this is just the nature of the beast, because I've gone into the bank and had the cashier pull out the wrong amount of money because she's wearing a mask and I'm wearing a mask. So especially if you guys are going to be, I'm just wondering when you're going to go back into the council chambers, if the issues are with the masks. The other thing is too, we can't tell immediately who you all are because you have masks on and some of you are behind other people. I think this is a great comment about how you all are coming up with the agendas. I do think it's very important, though, that we make sure that all of the council members are up to speed on any type of decisions that are made, how they happen, because at any point, any one of the council members could be called in to act as mayor or acting mayor or assistant mayor, etc. This is just the nature of the beast, the things that are happening. especially with COVID situations. But yes, I think that it's a very interesting situation, but congratulations on your first hybrid meeting. And like everything else, we'll just make it up as we go along. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer. I don't see any other hands raised from the public. I'm going to take on Jennifer's question. So thank you for posing that question, Jennifer. It's an excellent question. And so with regard to when we're going back to council chambers, when we go back live, this will not be the norm. The reason we're having a meeting in conference room C downstairs in City Hall right now that is broadcast is that we have this particular item. And it's a very unusual time, but it's, in my opinion, very important that we present this to council to be able to consider whether we take on this agenda setting process because we have the interim city manager here who had some very good ideas about how we set this forth in order to get the debrief and in order to get plenty of time for council to consider the draft agenda as well as the materials. So in terms of what the situation will be, I think if we're wearing masks, the microphones in community hall should be able to pick us up. If we're muffled because of the way that we communicated back then, it'll probably carry over. But I think we should be okay once we get back into community hall. The other thing that you had mentioned, Jennifer, and that's a great idea. I'm just going to go around the room and just raise your hand when you're called. We have City Clerk Kirsten Squarsha, our City Attorney Chris Jensen, our Council Member Hung Wei, Council Member John Willie, I'm Mayor Darcy Paul, Vice Mayor Liang Chow, Council Member Kitty Moore, our Interim City Manager Greg Larson, and I'm not sure exactly what to call Heather Minner at this point.
Special counsel.
The city attorney that we immediately had here, who is still here with Shu Mahali. So thank you for being here, Heather, this evening. And the original purpose of tonight's meeting, as I mentioned earlier, was to have closed session. So you can imagine the kind of logistical quandary we found ourselves in when we thought, how do we put this in front of council in open session in such a way that we're in time to be able to implement this potential change in the agenda setting process for the August meeting. And the only way we could figure it is that if we took this special meeting and we added an open component. Now, if we did that, we could have put this in community hall, but it would have been kind of relatively massive logistical exercise in order to make sure that we have one particular item. So that's that. I'm going to bring it back, and I do see Councilmember Moore with a hand raised. So what I normally do is I ask for a motion before we start deliberation on the item itself. Councilmember Moore, would you like to bring forward a motion at this time?
I would. I want to clarify that if I suggest that staff is ready to move ahead with that, I'm getting a nod. So I move that we approve the changes to the City Council agenda review process with the changes to become effective immediately for the August 17th, 2021 council meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Would anyone like to second Councilmember Moore's motion? I see Councilmember White. Councilmember White seconds the motion. Is there any desire for discussion? I will say that I'm fully supportive of this recommendation, even though I did come up with the brainchild of kind of the musical agenda review meeting schedule. I think for me, it's wonderful to be able to have a debrief immediately after, in the 1 or 2 days immediately after the council meeting. It's something that I haven't encountered in my 7th year now. And I think it's wonderful that between the draft agenda that I would, as mayor, approve the following day after a council meeting, that council itself has several days in order to consider that draft agenda and absorb it before the following Monday when I would have a meeting with Greg, as well as with Chris, as well as with Diane Thompson, our assistant city manager, to finalize that draft agenda. So between Monday and then whenever the packet gets published, either Wednesday or Thursday, council would then have the benefit of having a review of the agenda and a knowledge of that for a full week before the materials come out. And so that is a completely new time and amount of time for council to absorb what the upcoming meeting is about. But then also in that meantime, council is meeting one-on-one with the city manager and the assistant city manager and the city attorney to go over that previous week's council meeting. So, I think this is a really excellent way of doing things. And then ultimately, the questions asked will be much more informed because the packet will come out either on Wednesday or Thursday morning, and we'll have a few days to consider. And then the answers will come back to the council members. I believe it was Monday morning or Sunday evening. Is that correct?
We'll get the questions by Monday morning and we'll have answers as the information's available Monday night, as well as the presentations to be shared with the council and public would also come to you Monday night.
On Monday night. Okay, very good. So that's perfect because the presentations haven't come until the afternoon of the meeting. Vice Mayor Chow.
Yeah, so I'd like to say that I really appreciate Mayor Toll for, you spent a lot of time trying to work out the logistics timing with the one you proposed. And it's just, as it turns out, I was really looking forward to see how agenda setting works, what's being considered. But as it works out, I couldn't really follow the entire process because of Brown Act and other considerations.
Right.
So, yeah. So it was really well intentioned and really well planned, but all due to other limitations.
I'm the last
Yeah,
person to
really
claim that
thank you
a better
for that.
mousetrap can't be designed. So, I was working within the parameters of what we had originally. And so I don't take this in any kind of negative fashion whatsoever. I think this is a really good idea to implement. And, if we have the appetite, because ultimately a lot of our procedures, if not all of them, are implemented by staff. And so if we have the appetite on staff to, do that innovation and constant improvement, I'm going to ride that wave all the way, to its fruition. So, very happy, appreciate your kind words. It does sound like we have a good deal of improvements in the process to look forward to. Any other comments before we vote on this item that's on the table? From Vice Mayor Chow and then Councilman Ward.
One more comment regarding the presentation. Thank you for posting. I think I requested for all the staff presentation to be posted on the council agenda together back in 2019, and the staff has been posting that, and that's excellent. However, I find out the commission meetings don't have their presentations posted, so if that could also be improved, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
That's actually, well, so presentations, I'm sorry, I want to correct, I think that's not quite right. The presentations are usually released on the day of the council meetings.
But they're not posted on the website, so the public doesn't have access unless they email the city clerk to request it.
Right, I'm talking about the council. I'm talking about the council presentations. So they don't come out on the day that the agenda is published. So that's something that we've been trying to, I guess you've been trying to get that. I've been trying to get that. And I've always been told that, staff needs all the time it can possibly take, even right up to the meeting itself to get the presentation out. And I've just had experience, I've had experience over 6.5 years that, and early on in my first term, there was very substantive information being presented from the dais on these desk items in the presentations. And so the closer to the agenda publication we can release the presentations, the happier that'll make me. But I understand that there's work to be done, there are questions to be answered. And so if we can get these presentations on Monday evening, even Tuesday morning would be an improvement over what we have right now. But great. Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Councilmember Wood.
So I'll echo Vice Mayor in saying thank you for starting a different process that I think brings us all into the fold.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, okay, council meeting is Tuesday and fairly late in the game do we then even find out about the agenda. And so being brought into the fold much sooner, I think, makes it a more inclusive process. Okay, that being said, that I did attend, the one and thought it was also a very good idea to pollinate the rest of the council with something as opposed to it kind of being up to whoever is mayor to now pick up a ball and start running with it, and as opposed to carrying on a well thought out plan, like the. So that being said, I'm I'm very positive on the city manager's idea. So that sounds like another opportunity to move things in a good direction so we can get some feedback in. Because while even late in the game, giving feedback to the city manager about any important topic, whether it's Lehigh or whatever the topic is, there's really minimal adjustment that can be done that late in the game. Even comments about, shifting this item up to here because maybe it would flow better. Different people have different ideas, and at least being able to consider those types of things as opposed to the mayor being kind of in isolation and saying, in ours, I did hear, the mayor saying, okay, let's go ahead and move these two items up. But you're still limited to your set of eyes along with the city manager as opposed to the rest of these that are talking to residents. It might be about Ragnar Creek. All the input that we got might tend to say, gee whiz, we need to move that earlier because we know we're going to be getting a lot of comments.
Right.
And we don't want to keep those people waiting until midnight. So those are the types of things that I think really help to make the overall city council meeting move in a much better direction going forward.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, Councilman Willie. I mean, we didn't have orders of the day along with postponements until relatively recently.
Yeah.
I think probably 2 months ago. And I realized going to other agency meetings that they did have a mechanism for deciding whether to move an item up or down on the agenda based upon, a slew of factors, including the public's participation. So, absolutely. Like I say, this is always a work in progress. And when it comes to procedure and being able to improve our meetings, I think our staff has done a fantastic job. I mean, particularly our city manager's office right now, our city clerk's office has been incredible in terms of being able to, like I said in the meeting last week, make sure that we have an agenda packet that is as accessible and really convenient as possible. To be able to download one single file for everything, it really beats trying to click 100 files and trying to get all that material. So I'm just going to try to keep us cognizant of the time. We're 6:23, and we do have a planning commission meeting that is on this Tuesday. So that'll start at around 6:45. However, our video division does want to be able to transition timely. So we want to be able to hold to a 6:30 hard fast deadline. Are there any brief wrap-up comments from you, Councilmember Wood?
So also tossing out that I think the staff presentation is real, and I actually asked this of the previous city manager and was always told not possible, but at least for consideration. That staff PowerPoint, I feel, really does a good digest and, outline what the topic is going to be brought forward, as opposed to all the many pages of textual document that we try to wade through, trying to understand the gist. And while I agree, the previous city manager said that, well, staff is working on those PowerPoints right up until the meeting, I don't think it needs to be finished. This is my comments. I don't think it needs to be finished. If they've got the general outline, they've got 10 slides and maybe they've got 8 of the 10, by all means, I think, just providing that it helps us wade through the different agenda items, especially the important ones, Blackberry Farm, put some pictures in there, things that, wow, this would really make it more understandable for the community that's watching this. But doing it the day before or the day of, what can staff really do at that late date in the game? So I would toss that out for consideration. That I think that would really be helpful. And then don't pressure the staff, but let them know the initial draft of their presentation and slides, put it out there, and we know it's not the final version.
Okay, I'm going to hold us to, being very concise. Let me go to Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Wade. Did you, either of you have a comment that you wanted to share at this point?
No, I'm ready to call the question.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
me
let me go first too. Okay, well, before we call the question, let me ask Vice Mayor Check, can you make your comment very briefly? And I mean within 20 seconds so that we can wrap up this item.
The reason I request presentation to be posted on the website is because it was the practice of Cupertino Union and they were able to post the presentations the week before, so.
And that is in our proposal that both the presentations and the desk items in response to council inquiries will be publicly posted.
And of course, they can update later.
Yeah, sorry, I can't help myself, but I asked a question about 3 months ago. I said, I heard that Palo Alto prepares these agendas 2 agendas in advance. How does that work? So I was told about a month later, after I followed up, I was told, well, it doesn't work very well without too much detail. This is precisely not that kind of feedback. And so I appreciate you affirmatively going there, taking a look at our process. I'm very proud of our process. I think it's, kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think there are good points to what we had right now, but I think there are really good points to what we have going forward as well, assuming that this motion passes. So I thank you, Greg, for being willing to take a look at, the nuts and bolts of things and trying to improve them. So I'll absolutely give this my support. And so without any further ado, I'll ask our city clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Way,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Aye.
Mayor Paul,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. We are now on to a recess until 6:30. So video division, we delivered you completion for this item. And so members of our public, you are also welcome to log on to our closed session portion. However, I will remind you that we have a different link for that meeting. And so you'll need to go to the agenda and pull up that link if you're interested at the very beginning of council's closed session in making a comment with regard to those agenda items before we close the meeting. Thank you very much, and we'll bid you a good night if you are leaving us for now. Thank you.